was right back there. All that crying, right in the middle of it. My eardrums felt as if they were going to burst. Noise everywhere, people falling down, some of them hurt really badly. Pieces of buildings, chips flying in the air. One hit me hard on the side of the face, but I didn't seem to feel it. I wanted only to wake up, to get away from this place. It had been fun in the beginning. That first dream, when I kind of knew I was going to dream the end of the world or something. But this was terrible. There were older people in the cars. Most of the kids were in the street, but those old guys were yelling bloody murder, as if anybody could help them. Nobody could help them. Nobody could help them. It was then that I felt myself lifted up. Maybe I had died. I don't know. But I was over the city. It was tilting toward the ocean, like tilting a picnic table. The buildings were holding, better than you could believe. They were holding. They were holding. The people saw they were holding, and they tried to cling to them or get inside. It was fantastic. Like a building had a will of its own, everything else breaking around them, and they were holding, just holding. I was up over them, looking down. I started to root for them. Hold that line, I said. Hold that line, hold that line. I wanted to cheer, to shout, to scream. If the buildings held, those buildings on the boulevard, maybe the girl with the 2 kids, maybe she could get inside. It looked that way for a long time, maybe 3 minutes, and 3 minutes was like forever. Everybody was trying to get inside. They were going to hold. You knew they were going to hold, even if the waters kept coming up. Only they didn't. I've never imagined what it would be like for a building to die. A building dies just like a person. It gives way. Some of the bigger ones did just that. They began to crumble, like an old man with palsy, who couldn't take it anymore. They crumble right down to nothing, and the little ones screamed like mad over and above the roar of the people. They were mad about dying. But buildings do die. I couldn't look anymore at the people. I kept wanting to get higher. I kept willing myself to go higher. Then I seemed to be out of it all, but I could see. I seemed to be up on Big Bear near San Bernardino, but the funny thing is that I could see everywhere. I knew what was happening. The earth seemed to start to tremble again. I could feel it even though I was up high. This time it lasted maybe 12 seconds, and it was gentle. You couldn't believe anything so gentle could cause so much damage. But then I saw the streets of Los Angeles, and everything between the San Bernardino Mountains and LA. It was all tilting toward the ocean. Houses, everything that was left. I could see the highways, dozens of them still loaded with cars, 5 lanes, and all the cars sliding the same way. Now the ocean was coming in, moving like a huge snake across the land. I wondered how long it was, and I could see the clock, even though I wasn't there on the boulevard. It was 4:29. It had been half an hour. I was glad I couldn't hear the crying anymore, but I could see everything. I could see everything. Then, like looking at a huge map of the world, I could see what was happening on the land and with people. San Francisco was feeling it, but she was not in any way like Hollywood or Los Angeles. I seemed to see it was the Garlock Fault or the Hayward, whichever one is up there. Not just the San Andreas that was rocking San Francisco. It was moving just like that earthquake movie with Jeanette MacDonald and Clark Gable. I could see all those mountains coming together, the Sierra Nevada and the San Andreas and Garlock. I knew what was going to happen to San Francisco. It was going to turn over because of Garlock. It would turn upside down. It went quickly because of the twisting, I guess. It seemed much faster than Hollywood, but then I wasn't exactly there. I was a long, long way off. I shut my eyes for a long time, I guess 10 minutes, and when I opened them, I saw Grand Canyon. That great big gap was closing in, and Boulder Dam was being pushed from underneath. And then Nevada and on up to Reno. Way down south, way down Baja, California, Mexico too. It looked like some volcano down there was erupting, along with everything else. I saw the map of South America, especially Colombia, another volcano eruption, shaking violently. Venezuela seemed to be having some kind of volcanic activity. Away off in the distance, I could see Japan on a fault too. It was so far off, not easy to see, because I was still on Big Bear Mountain, but Japan started to go into the sea. I couldn't tell time then, and the people looked like dolls so far away. I couldn't hear the screaming, but I could see the surprised look on their faces. They looked so surprised. They were all like dolls. It was so far away I could hardly see it. In a minute or two, it seemed over. Everybody was gone. There was nobody left. I didn't know time now. I couldn't see a clock. I tried to see the island of Hawaii. I could just see huge tidal waves beating against it. The people on the streets were getting wet and they were scared. But I didn't see anybody going into the sea. I saw way around the globe. More flooding. Is the world going to be drenched? Constantinople. Black Sea rising. Suez Canal, for some reason, seemed to be drying up. Sicily, she doesn't hold. I could see a map. Mount Etna is shacking. A lot of this area seemed to go, but it seemed to be earlier or later. I wasn't sure of time now. England, huge floods, but no tidal waves. Water everywhere, but no one going into the sea. People were frightened and crying. Some places they fell in the streets on their knees and started to pray for the world. I didn't even know the English were emotional. Ireland, Scotland, all kinds of churches were crowded. It seemed night and day. People were carrying candles and everybody was crying for California, Nevada, parts of Colorado, maybe all of it, even Utah. Everybody was crying. Most of them didn't even know anybody in California, Nevada, Utah, but they were crying as if they were bloodkin, like one family, like it happened to them. New York was coming into view. She was still there. Nothing had happened, yet water level was way up. Here, things were different. People were running in the streets yelling, "End of the world!" Kids ran into restaurants and ate everything in sight. I saw a shoe store with all the shoes gone in about 5 minutes. Fifth Avenue. Everybody running, some radio blasting from a loudspeakers that in a few minutes power might be shut off. They must control themselves. 5 girls were running like mad toward the YWCA, that place on Lexington, or somewhere. They ran like they were scared to death. But nothing was even happening in New York. I saw an old lady with garbage cans filling them with water. Everybody seemed scared to death. Some people looked dazed. The streets seemed filled with loudspeakers. It wasn't daylight, it was night. I saw, like the next day, and everything was topsy-turvy. Loudspeakers again about fuel tanks, broken in areas, shortages of oil, people seemed to be looting markets. I saw a lot of places that seemed safe, and people were not scared, especially the rural areas. Here, everything was almost as if nothing had happened. People seemed headed to these places, some on foot, some in cars that still had fuel. I heard, or somehow I knew, that somewhere in the Atlantic land had come up. A lot of land. I was getting awful tired. I wanted to wake up. I wanted to go back to the girl, to know where she was. She and those 2 kids. I found myself back in Hollywood, and it was still 4:29. I wasn't up on Big Bear then. I was perched over Hollywood. I was just there. It seemed perfectly natural in my dream. I could hear now. I could hear, someplace, a radio station blasting out, telling people not to panic. They were dying in the streets. There were picture stations with movies, some right in Hollywood. These were carrying on with all the shaking. One fellow in the picture, TV station, was a little short guy who should have been scared to death, but he wasn't. He kept shouting and reading instructions. Something about helicopters or planes would go over. Some kind of planes, but I knew they couldn't. Things were happening in the atmosphere. The waves were rushing up now. Waves, such waves, nightmare waves. Then I saw again Boulder Dam going down, pushing together, breaking apart. No! Grand Canyon was pushing together, and Boulder Dam was breaking apart. It was still daylight. All these radio stations went off at the same time Boulder Dam had broken. I wondered how everybody would know about it. People back east. That was when I saw the ham radio operators. I saw them in the oddest places, as if I were right there with them, like the little guy with glasses. They kept sounding the alarm. One kept saying, "This is California. We are going into the sea. This is California. We are going into the sea. Get to the high places. Get to the mountains. All states west. This is California. We are going to the... I thought he was going to say sea, but I could see him. He was inland, but the waters had come in. His hand was still clinging to the table. He was trying to get up so that once again he could say, "This is California. We are going into the sea. This is California. We are going into the sea." I seemed to hear this over and over for what seemed hours in my head. Just those words. They kept it up until the last minute, all of them, calling out, "Get to the mountains. This is California. We are going into the sea." I woke up. It didn't seem as if I had been dreaming. I have never been so tired. For a minute or two, I thought it had happened. I wondered about 2 things. I hadn't seen all what happened to Fresno, and I hadn't found out what happened to that girl. I've been thinking about it all morning. I'm going home tomorrow. It was just a dream. It was nothing more. Nobody in the future on Hollywood Boulevard is going to be wearing earring and those beards. Nothing like that is ever going to happen. That girl was so real to me, though. That girl with those 2 kids. It won't ever happen. But if it did, how could I tell her? Maybe she isn't even born yet. To move away from California when she has her twins. And that she can't be on the boulevard on that day. She was so real. The other thing, those ham radio operators hanging on like that, over and over, saying the same thing. "This is California. We are going into the sea. This is California. We are going into the sea. Get to the mountains. Get to the hilltops. California, Nevada, Colorado, Arizona, Utah. This is California. We are going into the sea. I guess I'll hear that for days.